How to achieve financial freedom starting from debt. If you have 10 friends, and each lends you 1 million, you will immediately have 10 million in hand. Even if you only invest this amount at a steady 5% annual interest rate, you will earn an additional 500,000 in passive income. In the end, you can repay the borrowed amount along with a little interest to your friends. Sounds unreasonable, right? But let me tell you, there are countless attractive money-making projects in this world. Ultimately, most of them operate on this seemingly absurd principle of borrowing money, because making big money never separates from borrowing. The path to prosperity welcomes you. Think about it. Is there any rich person without debt? We don't even need to discuss individuals, just look at nations. Which developed country does not carry enormous debts on its shoulders? Have you noticed that all wealthy people or prosperous nations have assets that always scale with the debts they carry? The more debt they have, the richer they are. This means money and the smart use of debt is a skill we must learn throughout our lives. Because not only does it help us multiply our wealth quickly, but more importantly, it can also save our lives in emergencies. If you have never borrowed money, nor thought about who around you might lend you money, then what will you do if your family suddenly needs money for medical treatment, but you don't have enough in your pocket? Do you think talent alone can get you loans? If you truly had such talent, why doesn't your bank account have 8 digits in US dollars? Many people say borrowing money is very risky. But who told you that? Was it your teacher? Or your parents? Someone who never learned about borrowing telling you it's risky is like someone who has never driven saying driving is very dangerous. All risks in this world stem from ignorance. When you act without learning, it is indeed very risky. But today, I am sure I will teach my children how to drive, and I will definitely teach them how to borrow money. Because if you don't know how to drive, even giving you a Ferrari is useless. If you don't know how to manage debt, no matter how much family wealth you inherit, it means nothing. When I was young, I was taught not to lend money to anyone and not to borrow money from others. Therefore, I always thought debt was just an expense because you have to pay interest. More importantly, if a person has nothing, who would willingly lend them money? Don't even talk about borrowing. Just not borrowing from anyone is already good. Because of that thinking, I always considered myself somewhat foolish. I started from zero, self-started to earn my first capital. Then I invested in stocks to expand capital before going into business. I had never borrowed, not even once thought of borrowing. Because in Rich Dad Poor Dad, it says to buy assets and avoid debt. At that time, I read the English version and just followed it without really understanding the meaning behind it. Later, when rereading the book and other materials, I realized I had completely misunderstood. The author didn't say avoid all debts, but avoid bad debts and make use of good debts. That moment was like waking up. Currently, I am in debt to the bank, and this debt continues to increase. But I sleep better than anyone else. Because I have many keys to assets, employees to handle work, and many people who love me, including you. I have never been chased for debt. In fact, my creditors even wish me more success. Learning how to borrow money is a skill anyone who wants to succeed must have. Previously, my mindset was trapped by lack of money and fear, causing me to miss countless wealth-building opportunities. I don't want those who follow me to make the same mistakes, lacking financial mindset and lacking ambition to conquer the world. So if you watch this video until the end, you will understand what good debt is. More importantly, you will learn how to use good debt to truly achieve financial freedom. Courses out there cost tens of thousands of dollars. But today, I will share with you something even more valuable, all for free. If you don't support me, then if I stop doing this, no one else will. My channel was created to share the wealthy mindset for owners, helping people invest and understand how the rich really manage their finances. If you don't want to miss this information, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. Since childhood, we've been taught that debt-free is a light burden, that we must save money, and that entrepreneurship is risky. But why do most people believe that? Simply because in the past, to start a business you had to open a factory like Li Ka-shing. Most people when starting a business borrowed money from friends and family, then used that money to build factories, buy equipment, and hire workers. At that time, Everyone thought if the factory didn't make money, they wouldn't be able to repay the debt. If they couldn't repay, creditors would come to their homes demanding payment. The whole neighborhood would know, which was very embarrassing. Thus, people concluded that saving was the safe way, and entrepreneurship was too unrealistic. Ask yourself, when you owe money to someone, do you feel uncomfortable? When someone owes you money, do you lose sleep? Most people do. I used to be like that too. But what is the result? The reality is, employees are the creditors of the boss. Because employees put money into the bank, and the boss borrows that money from the bank to open a company. Then we use that money to build factories, hire those employees, and generate profit. When there is profit, we borrow more from the bank to expand and hire more people. In the end, the profit belongs to us, while the salaries paid to employees go back into the banking system and are borrowed by us again. So, is entrepreneurship risky? We often see companies go bankrupt. They go bankrupt because they owe too much and can't repay. Then their assets are liquidated. But when checked, there's nothing left, so they have to close. But what about the business owners? They still live in mansions and drive supercars. Because company assets and personal assets are completely separate, they don't have to pay a single cent. Look at the 2008 financial crisis, when Lehman Brothers and many Wall Street firms collapsed. Do you think their top leaders became so poor they had nothing to eat? The truth is, before the bankruptcy, they had paid themselves huge salaries. When the companies collapsed, they even received massive government subsidies. So how risky is borrowing really? When the financial crisis hit, many Americans went bankrupt, some even jumped from buildings. But American capitalists? They remained calm. Simply, they bundled the bad debts, sold them to other countries, forcing the world to buy their bonds. Shortly after, the US economy recovered quickly, even wealthier than before. And the world's money flowed into Americans' pockets. Currently, how much does the US owe? Do you know? I don't either, because it's an enormous number, impossible to count. They have borrowed to the point they can no longer repay. According to the logic that more debt means more risk, the US should have collapsed long ago, right? But now, the US still dominates the world. In a blink, they can cause the whole world to fall into economic recession, making all assets lose value. So what do they do then? They raise the value of the US dollar they previously borrowed, then use that money to buy assets worldwide that have lost value. After buying, they expand credit, push up the value of the assets they bought, and then continue weakening the dollar. Why do they do this? Because they have debt. Suppose they initially owe $1 billion. But now, with the dollar devalued, 2 billion current dollars equal 1 billion before. Meaning, if they pay back 1 billion now, it is effectively just 500 million before. You understand, right? Therefore, every time they issue money, they are issuing more debt. So why must you avoid debt when the US Federal Reserve keeps printing money without limit? Why do you insist on saving? Saving is the biggest scam banks have devised. Without even mentioning inflation, just look at reality. If you deposit 1 million in the bank, each year you only get 20,000 interest. But if someone doesn't understand borrowing and borrows 1 million from the bank, they might have to pay up to 100,000 interest. Most people think banks only make $80,000 from the interest rate spread, but in reality, they make $480,000. Why? Because they use financial leverage. Simply put, if today you borrow $1 million to buy a house, the bank doesn't hand you the cash. Instead, they transfer 1 million into the seller's account. The seller checks their phone, sees the extra million, and hands over the house to you. But actually, that money still stays within the banking system. You and the seller have just completed the transaction. Now, suppose the bank makes 50 similar transactions, each time earning $100,000 in interest. In total, they have made $5 million. Meanwhile, their cost is only $20,000 in interest paid to the original depositors. This is exactly how banks operate. They borrow money from people, pay a little interest, and then make millions from that. Financial leverage is an essential skill for the wealthy. It's the secret to earning in 1 month what others might earn in a lifetime. Why do most people fail to make money? It's actually like losing weight. Summer comes, you realize your short skirt doesn't fit, and decide to lose weight. But then winter arrives, thick clothes cover everything. No one sees your waist or legs anymore, so you stop dieting. This cycle repeats year after year. No real plan, no real determination. Today, by watching this video, I want to tell you, not making money is unacceptable. Not losing weight is unacceptable, because money keeps losing value, and weight keeps increasing. But when making money, what is the biggest problem? Suppose you run a business without customers. Can you handle the consequences? Rent, employee salaries, inventory costs, all have to be paid. You've invested time, money, and effort. Is it worth it? That's why we have to borrow. Who told you that opening a store in a crowded place means paying high rent? There is a street called YouTube. Every day, 2.4 billion people pass by, and opening a store there costs nothing. If among those 2.4 billion people, just 10,000 are willing to spend $100 to buy your product or service, you immediately make $1 million. 20 years ago, we shopped in physical stores or malls. Now, everyone shops online. So why should you start a business and seize this opportunity? Because if you want to make money, you don't have many choices. Most investments and businesses have financial barriers. Either you borrow money, or you borrow time and people's attention, then convert that into money. You may ask, but I don't know business, don't understand marketing, can't edit videos, and have no special skills or passion. Even more, I don't want anyone to know I'm secretly making money. So can I do it? If you don't know, learn. And most importantly, learn from the right teacher. So what is good debt, and how do you make money using borrowed capital? Listen carefully. There was an airline company with just over $1 million in hand. For some, that might be a large amount. But for me, I had that amount at age 23. However, the company didn't stop there. Now they own billions, even tens of billions, and I'm still learning from their model. With just over $1 million, they actually couldn't buy an airplane. But thanks to society, they could raise $30 to $40 million, just enough to buy one airplane. Instead of buying immediately, they took the money to the bank, put down half as a deposit to buy 2 airplanes, and financed the rest with loans. Of course, the bank agreed because this mechanism is like borrowing money to buy a house. If the company can't repay the loan, the bank repossesses the planes and auctions them off. As a result, the airline only needed the money for 1 plane but bought 2. While most people think that's already a great strategy, the company kept going to banks and investors saying, "Our planes fly in the sky every day, flights are always full. Each plane generates at least $60,000 per day. In 3 years, we can make $60 to $70 million profit." Then they offered, "The profits from the next 3 years will belong entirely to investors. You just invest $50 million now, and after 3 years you'll get back $60 to $70 million. Investors, hearing this, thought, "Invest $50 million now, get $60 to $70 million back in 3 years. Is that worth it?" Making $10 to $20 million profit, plus relatively stable returns, they agreed to invest. Immediately, the airline had $50 million in hand. They took this money back to the bank to borrow more. Repeating this process continuously, they used this method to buy 200 airplanes, meanwhile selling all the profits for the next 3 years to investors. This is how capital operates. First borrow money to buy assets, then sell future profits of those assets to investors or banks. But in the end, the assets still belong to them. Then they use the cash flow from operations to gradually pay off the bank loans. Usually when borrowing, the longer the repayment term the better, because then the monthly or yearly payments are smaller. When 3 years pass and all profits from those 200 planes belong to the company, the debt burden will significantly decrease. Once, I visited a beautiful tourist spot. A friend there wanted to cooperate with me to open a hotel. Let me share my thinking. Suppose I invest $2 million in this hotel. Each year, it can generate at least $600,000 profit. Now, I would find investors or a small fund, pre-sell the hotel's profits for the next 4 years, at least $2.4 million in profits, but sell it for only $2 million. It seems like I lose $400,000 in profits, but in return, I immediately recover my capital. Then I use that $2 million to open another hotel, and again pre-sell the profits for the next 4 years of that hotel. By repeating this, I can use the money from one hotel to open 10 hotels. After 4 years, all 10 hotels still belong to me. Therefore, good debt is debt that others help you repay. I have practiced this method many times. Before, I had about $1 million. At that time, one house cost about $1 million. I only took $500,000 as a deposit and borrowed from the bank to buy 2 houses, using the money of one house to buy 2. The rest I used to pay taxes and other expenses. At this point, many people might worry, now you don't have much money left. What if you can't repay the loan? The bank will repossess your house. But why can't you repay? Because you're afraid of losing your job, afraid your company will go bankrupt, afraid of a financial crisis. But why are you afraid? Because you never thought about renting out your house so that tenants help you repay the loan. Who truly owns assets? Most are those who buy houses to rent out. My 2 houses are the same. The rental income each month is enough to pay the bank loan. Later, when the house value doubles, do I sell? No. I simply go to the bank to borrow more. Before, when the house was worth $1 million, I could borrow $500,000. But now, with the house value at $2 million, I can borrow a few $100,000 more. Then I use that money to buy 1 or 2 smaller houses. This way, I keep expanding my investment portfolio. I buy houses under my name, family's name, company's name, and in multiple countries and regions. Many people might wonder, with such a high financial leverage, if house prices drop, won't you go bankrupt? Now let's look at the reality. House prices in many places are indeed adjusting. So what is my outcome? From the very beginning, I never intended to sell the house. I am not speculating in real estate. Others might earn 10% then sell, or earn 50% then exit, but I do not. Whatever the house price has increased in recent years, I have benefited exactly that much. Suppose I have doubled my initial investment, but now the house price falls by 10%. Do I feel anything? I just lose 10% of my profit. Others might regret it, but I do not. Because I never intended to sell. I simply let the tenants pay the debt for me. So does the bank ever urge me to pay? Absolutely not. Because every month I pay on time. In fact, every day I even receive dozens of calls from the bank asking if I want to borrow more. Some may worry that interest rates are rising now, and many places are following suit. Wouldn't my monthly debt pressure increase? But in reality, you can check the rental prices in areas you know. Rent has been continuously rising. My rental income now exceeds the monthly payments I owe the bank. I have said many times, the longer you pay off a mortgage, the less you pay monthly. Moreover, the principal portion in that payment still belongs to me. When I sell the house, I get it back. If you don't understand, you can review my previous videos. So, how does this affect me? The stagnation in house prices only makes it a bit harder for me to borrow money to buy houses, because the collateral is less easy for the bank to disburse against. But in reality, this does not affect my real estate investment plans at all. Besides, my company is still generating income, so market fluctuations do not impact me. But some people complain that for years they haven't been able to gather enough money for a house down payment. I keep repeating the same advice. In this era, the simplest and most effective way to change your fate is to start a business online. If you can't even do this, tell me, what better project could there be? Now even billionaires do it. People with less education than you are making money online. Monks sharing Buddhist scriptures on the internet also earn money. Feng Shui masters explaining online also make money. Kids singing, dancing, playing games, reviewing toys, even people who just pretend to be silly or perform comedy earn money. Everything can become creative content. What if you don't have enough money for a down payment? The method remains the same. Borrow. Borrow from parents, borrow from friends, or even invite others to invest together, signing contracts. Then simply split the money according to the capital contributed. This is why people say relationships equal money. Ordinary people cannot operate this way. First, if you don't have collateral, banks won't lend you money. So, you can only find investors to raise capital. But sadly, most people around you cannot even borrow $10,000 from friends. If someone is willing to lend, it's usually only for emergencies like medical treatment or saving lives. If you say you want to borrow to invest or do business, they immediately think you are a scammer. Therefore, I only associate with people who benefit my business and money making. Those who only invite me to drink, party, and waste time, I gradually cut them off. The internet is the best place to connect with influential people. Friends are like credit cards. If you don't use them regularly, they are not your resources. Suppose your credit card limit is $100,000, but you want to buy something worth $200,000. When you call the bank to request a limit increase, they basically won't approve it. Unless you already have $1 million in your account, because you never used the card much before, suddenly wanting to double the limit to borrow money is a high-risk move. What I usually do is use credit cards for all daily transactions and pay on time. After about 6 months to a year, I raise the limit again. As the limit gradually increases, the bank proactively upgrades my card to platinum, even black card status. Relationships work the same way. I often ask for help and support from friends, proactively give gifts even when I have money. If I have a project needing investment, I still borrow from friends to see how much they can lend, because I always repay on time. Each time I borrow, I increase my credibility. Ask yourself, what is your credit value? Try borrowing from friends and see how much they are willing to lend. That amount is your credit value. Reputation must be nurtured. I maintain relationships with friends and investors to ensure that whenever opportunities arise, I have enough money to seize them. I also take care of my credit limit with banks, so the interest I pay is very low, sometimes even zero. This is good debt. So what is bad debt? That's how ordinary people understand debt, like borrowing money to buy an expensive designer bag for a lover. Not only do you have to repay the debt, but you also pay for someone else's lifestyle. I know many people are trapped in the vicious cycle of bad debt and suffer terribly. I understand that feeling. If you really cannot repay your debt, seriously listen to these 6 pieces of advice from me. These methods help you recover, even make investors and creditors willing to continue lending money to help you regain financial health. Above all, I hope you don't see debt as so serious that you consider ending your life. Remember the first rule, don't run away. Running away is the stupidest way. Why? Because once you run, people will definitely find you. Once they find you, the fact you defaulted on debt will spread widely, meaning you cut off relationships with creditors, and it will be very hard to borrow money from others later. Second, don't cut off communication. If creditors call you, always answer. If they want to meet, you must meet them. On holidays and Tet, send them sincere greetings. Don't let them have to take harsh measures. Remember, all this pressure is forced upon you. So don't test their patience or say thoughtless words. If you do these, you are on the right track. Third, don't lose their trust in you. You need to let them know you are not hiding, that you are still here, that they can see all your assets and know what you are doing. Even if you no longer have anything to sell or mortgage, at least show them you are trying to change your current situation. Your only goal in life is to find a way to repay them. If they push you to the edge and you have nothing left to repay, their money will be lost forever. Fourth, be responsible. I won't beat around the bush or make excuses. I have only one goal: work hard to earn money to repay debt. What does effort mean? It means I keep working, don't waste money, don't buy new clothes, and pay a part of the debt regularly every month. Fifth, be proactive. Most people in debt avoid contact and disappear. This is the stupidest action, pushing themselves to the edge. But we are people of integrity. Money can be owed, but reputation cannot. If you owe someone, you must proactively remind them about your debt. Tell them clearly how much you owe, what you're doing to earn money to repay, and your plans. This reassures creditors because those who lend to you trust you, truly want you to improve, and often care and love you most. If you turn even them into enemies, you truly deserve the consequences. Sixth, seek opportunities. If investment opportunities arise, you can still rely on your credibility to borrow from creditors. Why? Because if they lend more to help you recover, they not only have a chance to get their money back, but also to profit. Conversely, if they refuse, that debt may be lost forever. So don't put yourself in a situation where no one helps. If you trap yourself in a dead end, are you sure you can recover alone? You definitely still need resources from others. Do you understand? Due to time limits, I will stop here. We share free information on how to become wealthy entrepreneurs, investors, and achieve financial freedom. If you don't want to miss out, follow our channel, turn on notifications, and share this video. I sincerely wish everyone supporting this video will soon achieve financial freedom. If even 1 or 2 sentences in this video help your life, I feel fulfilled.